Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football.
Hey, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers, here to talk playoffs. Seahawks versus 49ers. Third time is a charm, we hope. Wild card weekend. Keith, welcome in, man.
Yeah, big game this weekend. Playoffs are here. Losing, you're done. And the offseason begins. And it's a really tall order for Seattle. They have to go on the road down to Santa Clara to take on the team, the hottest team in the NFL. They've won 10 straight. Statistically, they might be the best team, or they are the best team in the NFC, one of the top four in the league. And it with the 49ers, and even with a rookie third string quarterback, the offense is just continuing to roll. In fact, I think it's better with Brock Purdy than it was under Garoppolo, and it was better under Garoppolo than it was under Trey Lance. So you put it all together, and this is a tough team to play against.
You know, it all had to come together for Brock Purdy. Now, I like Brock Purdy. He's a good quarterback, obviously. Mr. Irrelevant in the draft, drafted last in the 2022 draft by these 49ers. Wasn't expected to play all year. Trey Lance was going to be the guy. If not, it was going to be Garoppolo. Both quarterbacks got hurt. This kid comes in and does nothing but just play outstanding. But he's got a lot of help around him. He's got a great roster, probably one of the best and most developed rosters in the NFL. And they made that trade for Christian McCaffrey. That turned out really well for them. He's been playing excellent this year, and especially down the stretch.
And
George
he stayed
Kittle,
healthy. That's the big thing. He stayed healthy.
Yeah. And the roster itself, stayed healthy. Deebo Samuel as well. I was going to say George Kittle has 5 touchdowns in the last 3 games. Anytime you've got a weapon like George Kittle, it's going to make a quarterback look great. Not taking anything away, however, from Brock Purdy. He's just played really great. It's interesting. You'd mentioned the best team in football, at least in the NFC. The Philadelphia Eagles have the best record technically, number 1 seed. But yeah, I mean, the 49ers have won their last 10 games.
Yeah.
Would they start like 3 and something?
They were 3 and 4 as they worked through the Trey Lance situation, and the Trey Lance offense, and then he gets hurt. They bring in Garoppolo, and they had to kind of redo the offense with Garoppolo because he's a completely different type of quarterback. And let's face it, he hadn't been there for most of training camp because they didn't want him around the team, creating a quarterback controversy and all that. He wasn't practicing much. And then it took a little bit for him to get it going. And once he did, though, the offense took off. The team started doing well. He gets hurt. Brock Purdy comes in, and the offense gets better. And yeah, they've been hitting on all cylinders. 10 straight wins coming into this game.
And their defense is just the best. I mean, their point differential is plus 173. They've got a plus 13 turnover ratio. 49ers offense, by itself ranks 5th in total yards, 8th in rushing, 6th in scoring, but their defense is stellar. Ranks first in a lot of different categories, is allowing 16.3 points per game, 318 yards per game. Run defense allows 3.4 yards per carry and 77.7 yards per game.
49ers allowed half as many rushing yards on the season than Seattle did.
Yeah. Seattle ranks 26th in total yards, 30th in rushing yards allowed, 25th in scoring. It's amazing. San Francisco's defense ranks 1st in total yards, 2nd in rushing yards allowed, and 1st in scoring. I mean, they're just completely polar opposite. And when you have that, as good as they've been on offense and as great as they've been on defense, you win a lot of games, and they have. So,
yeah.
So we faced them twice this year, lost both games, lost the games in the trenches, I think, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the first game, Geno Smith just wasn't ready for that game. We didn't play well. We didn't score any offensive points in that game.
Yeah.
Second game, they got
first week. Yeah, the first game was also in week 2.
Yeah,
and I think that when you look at the Seattle team and what they've done, developing their defense and figuring out the scheme and everything, and they're a different and better team than they were in week 2. But they also played in week 15. And that's not that long ago. And this is essentially the same Seattle team and the same San Francisco team that was there during week 15, because even Brock Purdy was playing at that point. And again, they dominated Seattle up front. They won in the trenches, offense and defensive line. And I mean, that's the difference in the game.
They went up 21-6. That was the score heading into the fourth quarter. Brock Purdy was 17 of 26 for 217 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 117 passer rating. In the first quarter, they started strong. Purdy went 9 for 9 right out of the gate, 73 yards. Both Christian McCaffrey and Kittle played significant roles right up front. So it's just, this is a nice team. It's a seasoned team. It's well coached. Kyle Shanahan, if you like him or hate him or whatever, he's a good coach. Gets them ready to play. They made their second trip to the NFC Championship in 3 seasons, and look to get back there again. D'Amico Ryans is a great defensive coordinator, puts everyone in a position to be successful, especially their linebackers. He was originally a linebackers coach.
Mm-hmm. He's got some good linebackers to work with.
Yeah, they certainly do. And, with Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, those 2 guys have the speed on defense. Their safeties are quick. They come up and hit you. Their tackles are great at stopping the run. They've got a decent back end as well. It's probably their weakest spot on their defense. If they were going to get beat at all, it'd be over the top. I think San Francisco's allowing. I wrote this down. I just want to make sure I get it here. Yeah, the 20th ranked pass defense, susceptible to the big play. They've got 6 plays over 50 yards against them this season, tied with Green Bay for the most in the NFL.
And what that tells you and what that shows is that the weakest link on this entire roster is cornerback. And if you look at it on paper, that's what it would appear to be. And then you go look at the stats and watch the game film. It's cornerback is where they struggle, but it tends to not matter because they're so good at getting to the quarterback that it doesn't, they cover up for a lot of mistakes on the back end by simply not letting the quarterback sit there and deliver the ball. And yeah, sure, they've given up 6 plays of 50 plus yards, but
But they also get ahead of teams. Their point differential is so great that stuff hasn't mattered. Nick Bosa is probably going to be, defensive player of the year.
Yeah.
And it's, they're just a good team. Okay. So we know that they're good. We know that they've beaten us twice. But if you're the Seahawks, you've got to hang your hat on recent improvement on running the ball and defending the run. Should give you some optimism on their defense. Their defense has been playing better, more coordinated, better just overall at stopping the run, getting to the quarterback. They've been able to affect, timing and so forth. And they're going against a rookie. Now, say what you want. Purdy's been playing well, but this is the playoffs. It's a different animal. You've got a hungry Seattle defense that has nothing to lose except for get after it. And I would imagine that's going to be one of the keys to this game. The Seahawks defense have held their last 3 opponents to under 300 yards on offense, including the Chiefs on the road. And they're allowing 15.3 points per game in those games, giving up 10 total points after halftime. And I think that's one of the keys here. Seattle needs to play really well on defense. We need some ball hawks. We need to punch the ball out. We need some turnovers. That's going to be one of the keys to this game. I already said that San Francisco's plus 13 point turnover differential. That's going to be important. Seattle needs to be able to figure out a way. The other thing that I think Seattle needs to do, Keith, is they need to play aggressive, not only blitzing on defense, but on offense. They need to go for it. You need to bring all your plays out in this game. Leave it all out there. Everything you've got in the book needs to be in play, and you need to be able to be aggressive. If you get into 4th and short situations close to the midfield line, you need to be able to go for some of those. Pete has hesitancy to go for those. We all know that, but this is do or die. And so you got to leave it all out on the field. I think the Detroit Lions should have been a great inspiration for Pete in this game coming up, because they were very aggressive, especially down the stretch, and they were successful because they just believed that they were going to get that. And I think that's what Seattle needs to do in this game.
I agree. They need to do that. They need to execute and all those kind of things. But also they need to play towards their strengths, right? If you look at the game, the most recent one, Lockett had 7 receptions, Metcalf had 7 receptions, Noah Fant had 5. You can throw the ball on the 49ers, and as long as you can protect your quarterback. Well, okay. Keep your tight ends in, and you got 3 good tight ends. Use them all. Go to that 13 personnel at times, and keep it back in, to help give Geno that extra second. Do what you got to do to give Geno the time, and if you do that, you can get the ball downfield on him. And they've got to do that, and they've got to be able to run the ball. One of the big problems that Seattle had in that same game was that Walker had 12 rushes for 47 yards. That's not going to cut it. You're not going to win giving your star running back 12 rushes. Now, granted, they were down for the entire game, so that's part of it. But the 47 yards, the 3.9 yards per carry is also part of it. They just weren't able to get yards when they did run it. But they've recommitted to the running game. They've reestablished that identity. They've fixed what was giving them a lot of problems over these last 3 games. And I like to think that you're going to be able to run it at the 49ers. The 49ers have a fantastic run defense. It's going to be hard, but that's why you end up throwing the ball a lot more than you run it. But when you do run it, you need to run it successfully. And if the Seahawks can do that, then they can stay on the field more. They can convert some 3rd downs. They can keep Brock Purdy on the sideline. And if you do that, we've said it already. He's a rookie. Keep him on the sidelines. You don't let him get into a rhythm, all of those things. Eventually, he's going to start doing rookie things. And if Seattle's going to win it, that's how they're going to win it.
They need to put pressure on him. They need to get to him. They need to really kind of just force him to be uncomfortable. And he hasn't had a lot of that. They've got a decent offensive line. They keep him clean. But I just looked at the weather in Santa Clara for Saturday. It's awful. It's going to be awful all the way to the game time, like nearly 100% chance of rain for the entire week. It's going to be wet. It's going to be soggy. The field is going to be puddly in spots, and it's supposed to rain 1/2 inch just on Saturday. So that doesn't really advantage either team. We haven't seen Geno Smith really have to fight through the weather, although it did rain against the Rams this last week. But that's just a different kind of weather there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And weather that bad tends to favor the running game. But both of these teams are going to be able to run the ball. They both have good running backs. They both have an established record of being able to grind out yards when they need them to. And, McCaffrey is as good as they get.
Yep. Elijah Mitchell had a great season. Yeah. So, yeah. And George Kittle,
the big plays in the last time Seattle played San Francisco were it was Mason who had, 4 attempts for 64 yards and really kind of blew the doors open as far as their ability to run the ball and really make everything work as far as the big play stuff goes. So they've got guys that can get it done. So does Seattle. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
DJ Dallas has been running really well lately,
Yeah, he
and
has.
and Ken Walker's been having, he's had like 3 fantastic games in a row. I think he's all 3 games he's over 100 yards. So yeah, it just really kind of sets up.
Godwin Igwebuike could be a key in this game. The kick returner that just recently signed on with Seattle. The return game could be, the special teams could be important. Just a tip pass or a forced fumble could be the difference in this thing. In the playoff, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. It's hard to beat a team twice. The most difficult thing for the Seahawks is up and down the roster. We just have deficits. That's just the way it is. Talent deficits all up and down the roster, and we've got to figure out a way.
Less depth. There's a lot less depth. And that's the thing, is you don't have the depth, so you're going to have to play your guys, and they're going to have to the offense needs to stay on the field and let the defense rest, because if you're not doing that, if you're making the defense get out there and play, that lack of quality depth is going to kill you, and you're going to end up at the end of the game just unable to hold up, because the 49ers have great depth. They're going to be able to rotate their guys, and it's going to be fine. Where Seattle, and we've seen it, when they rotate that defensive line and they get away from the starters, it gets bad in a hurry for Seattle.
Yeah. And we don't want to be playing Miles Adams. We don't want to be playing Divian Nixon, but here we are. We got Al Woods, and that's it. Poona Ford, obviously, Shelby Harris. Shelby Harris in the playoffs for the first time in his career. He's happy as a camper. Quentin Jefferson's been playing well. Bruce Irvin's been playing decent.
He had a really bad game a couple of weeks ago, but this last week he played really well. So
and Darrell Taylor's played well. And Boye Mafe, these guys are playing decent down the stretch. They need to have great games. These guys can't just have decent games. They have to have great games where they really affect plays, tackles behind the line of scrimmage, etc. Get the 49ers into 3rd and long. Force Purdy to throw the ball into coverage. Have Tariq Woolen be able to come up big. Have Diggs be able to have an interception. This is what it's going to take to beat this team. We're going to have to generate 3 or 4 additional possessions in this game to have a shot. That's my feeling. I think that's proven out by the point differential that the 49ers have, and the roster and the capabilities they have, and they've shown against us in 2 games. But I think if we can do that, we've got a shot. Geno's going to have a great game. Ken Walker's going to have 100 yards. Plus, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are going to have to catch everything that's thrown their way. And I know it's going to be hard. It's going to be raining. It's going to be wet. But that's the way it is. And we're going to have somebody step up that we're not thinking about. Noah Fant, Will Disley, Derek Young. Somebody's going to have to make some plays.
Derek Young got his first touches of the season in this last game, and had that end around, which is weird because it counts as a pass because it got kind of shoveled to him. But he had to make a guy miss in order to get upfield and get yards, and after that they got him the ball again on a quick out, and it's good to see him because he's a guy has tremendous talent. He's tremendous athletic talent. And so if they can continue to get him involved and that kind of stuff, that will just make the team better next year.
Go ahead.
I will say that the thing that worries me here is Christian McCaffrey and the Seahawks not having Jordan Brooks, because
the only thing that makes me feel better in that
is tackling it. They need that, and they're not.
The only thing that makes me feel better in that situation is that the weather and the rain is going to neutralize some of the speed. And the hard hitting, the tackles inside of a phone booth are going to be important in this game. Stretching the field, making plays over the top are going to be limited opportunities. And it's just going to come down to in the trenches. We lost those battles earlier. But it doesn't mean we have to lose the 3rd time. And it just, it is what it is. It's a playoff game. it's an opportunity. We had talked about this being happy just being in the playoffs, and I think that's really kind of a slight actually to the Seahawks and Pete Carroll and Geno Smith. These guys want to play. They want to win. They want to advance just as bad as anybody else. And so they're going to have that opportunity, and they just need to go out and prove us wrong. We're not giving them much of a shot. I think if we did predictions right this second, and we'll do predictions, they might not favor Seattle, but I'm just trying to think of any possible thing that the Seahawks could do other than just, sheer trickery to get past this team. And there's just not much there. But
is Ryan Neal
getting
healthy? Is he going to play? Because I thought he was practicing. Because if you look at George Kittle's performance against the Seahawks in the last one, he had the big 54-yard reception that kind of sealed it for San Francisco, but that was actually on Tariq Woolen and him not picking up the guy coming across into his zone as it gets transferred to him. The rest of the game, George Kittle had 3 receptions, and Ryan Neal had a fantastic game in coverage against him. I
just read today that Ryan Neal via Pro Football Focus made their All-Pro team.
Yeah, he has been very good in coverage on tight ends. You look at some of the best tight ends in the NFL, whether it be Kittle and Kelsey, and they've played a bunch of good ones, and none of them ate the Seahawks up the way tight ends used to. And a lot of that had to do with Ryan Neal's ability to cover. He's a tall guy, so he doesn't get out muscled or any of that, but he covers. He's a former cornerback. He covers like a cornerback. And so they're going to need him to in here on Kittle, because as Tease Tabor is a nice story as a guy there, and Abram, having a guy like that, but Abram is a coverage guy. He's a run stuffing, strong safety. You need Ryan Neal's ability to cover George Kittle, or it's going to be a long day of them getting a lot of first downs when they need it by throwing the ball to their big tight end.
Yeah, I agree. And the same thing with our linebackers, Darrell Taylor, Boye Mafe, Tanner Muse. Tanner Muse could be a key in this game, and as far as a guy in coverage or tip balls, had one last game, a tip ball. And he's got good speed for a linebacker. He's kind of undersized, but he kind of makes up for it with his speed.
Yeah, he's undersized, and he's not the most explosive athlete as far as like acceleration and agility, but he's got good straight line speed and which they need. And the guy just plays hard, and he plays smart,
and he's intelligent.
Yeah. So I mean, he's not Jordan Brooks, and I'd love to have Jordan Brooks healthy and not on an injured reserve, but at the same time, like, give the guy a little bit of credit. He can get out there and chase after guys. You're not gonna have guys just completely run away from him.
So talk to me a little bit here about the trenches on offense. How do we handle the 49er defense?
That is a good question. Because if you look at this defense, right, Bosa coming off the edge
he's a nightmare.
He is a nightmare, and
he wore down Abraham Lucas in the last game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Lucas played him pretty well for about 3 quarters, and then ran out of gas, and Bosa kind of took over after that, and really stopped Seattle from being able to come back in this game. And
be an interesting strategy if Seattle threw out like Stone Forsythe for 2 or 3 series just to keep Abraham Lucas steady in the fourth quarter.
I mean, that's a possibility. Or you can recently they've been doing things where they run in, a sixth or and sometimes even a 7th offensive lineman, bringing in both like Stone Forsythe and Jake Curran at the same time as extra linemen.
Do you
Technically, line up
imagine?
in tight end, and I could see them doing it.
Do you imagine that they activate both current and fourth tight in this game, even though Abraham Lucas is back?
I could see it. Honestly, I
Who
can.
else would you set?
Uh
They had activated Tyler Mabry for one game. They had 4 tight ends.
Mabry's probably the one who would end up sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Because of now, with Disley being back healthy and able to play, I think you sit Mabry and you keep the extra offensive lineman because you're going to need them. You've got Armstead and that whole group, Bosa and even Kerry Hyder, who used to be with Seattle.
Yeah.
Keem Spence is out there too. I mean, that's a really deep team. You're going to want the guys. You're going to want to be able to run in those extra offensive linemen at times. You're going to want to run 3 tight ends in there and do the 13 personnel with one back and 3 tight ends. I love the fact that they used Nick Bellore at fullback for really kind of the first time all year in this last game, because now that's something the 49ers have to think about. They put that on tape. That's one more thing the 49ers have to look at when they're
The other thing,
keys and stuff. So
the other thing is Derek Young was back in the backfield.
Yep. And the Seahawks also ran that Wildcat with direct snap to DJ Dallas
Twice.
and made that work.
That was interesting.
Except for when Geno Smith got himself in that wide receiver stance and couldn't keep his balance and have a false start. That was hilarious. He's like, let's not do this anymore.
Crazy. So, all right, let's get into predictions, because you know what? You can talk all day long about these two teams, about this matchup, about how we got here. We're here. We're playing this game. It's wild card weekend. It's do or die. What do you got?
I hate saying it, but I've got San Francisco in this one. I think they're just too much for Seattle. The game is lost in the trenches. They're just not good enough on the interior of the offensive line and up front on defense. And because Al Woods, when he wears down, because he can't play every snap on defense, who's your next nose tackle? Well, it's Quentin Jefferson right now, and that's not a good look for Seattle when you've got Christian McCaffrey in there. And I just think that overall, San Francisco is just a little too much for Seattle right now. Seattle needs another year of roster building before they're on that same level. And I think they keep it relatively close. I think the defense is able to keep the score down. Last time it was 21-13. I think this one's going to be more like 24-17. And right about that same kind of range, where San Francisco just is a little too much for Seattle. But I think it'll be closer and entertaining.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. Seattle on defense just doesn't have an answer for Brandon Ayuk. Doesn't have an answer for Deebo Samuel. Can stay fairly even with Juan Jennings. Doesn't really have an answer at all for George Kittle, really. Christian McCaffrey is a problem. There's 5 guys right there that can take advantage of Seattle in matchups if Purdy can get the ball out. We'll see. This guy's a rookie coming into his first NFL playoff start. Has only started 5 games overall. Came in and played in 6 total. And on defense, do we have the weapons that they can't handle? DK Metcalf's a matchup nightmare.
Tyler Lockett's
a matchup. Yeah, absolutely.
And the Seahawks have 3 tight ends that are matchup nightmares.
I agree.
In part because they've got 3 of them.
And I love the way that Colby Parkinson's been playing. And I think they should use him more in his size and create some mismatches in the red zone if they can get into the red zone. Ken Walker's a mismatch nightmare. He's a breakaway ability from anywhere on the field.
The problem that Seattle has is the interior of the offensive line.
Yes, the interior of the offensive line and the speed of the 49er defense. There's a reason the 49ers are the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL in almost all categories, except for defending the pass. because of that speed. They got Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, Samson Abuakam, Nick Bosa, Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, and on the back end, they've got some good safeties. They've got Tashawn Gibson as a free safety, Shavarius Ward, Jimmy Ward. They've just got a loaded defense, and in order to take advantage of being able to get it to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, you've got to protect long enough for Geno to get the ball out. Now, can they use that aggression that the 49ers have against them? Yes, they can. They could run screens. Oh, wait, Seattle's the worst screen team I've ever seen in the history of the NFL. Can they unleash?
That's been true the entire time Pete Carroll's been here. What is it? I mean, Pete Carroll is a fantastic coach, but why is it that none of his teams any year, no matter who is the offensive coordinator is and who the quarterback is,
right?
Why can they not run a screenplay?
That's crazy. I think I've seen them run 2 or 3 successful screenplays out of like 60 in the last 10 years. Ken Walker, he's got to be able to figure out a way. Now, this is the worst possible game for Ken Walker to bounce outside because of the weather and because of the speed on the 49ers. He needs to be able to just take what he can get initially in this game up the middle, whether it's 2 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards. That's more helpful than bouncing and losing 2. So I think that Ken Walker is going to be important. But you've got to figure out a way to neutralize that pass rush. And so Geno's got to be able to get the ball out quick. Got to be able to use Derek Young. No team has really scouted Derek Young. No team really can match up against Kobe Parkinson. Those guys are going to be in single coverage. You need to be able to play, and those guys need to be able to step up and have big games. And then honestly, Ken Walker out of the backfield as well. Get that pass rush coming.
Derek Young has a chance to really be an X factor in this game because he is tall, he is fast, he is a DK Metcalf-like body.
He's got a Deebo Samuel type body.
Well, sure, but I mean, he's
a
big,
running
he's
back.
Fast.
That's what I'm saying.
Does all those things, and he is a guy that the Seahawks don't have a third receiver. They haven't really had one all year. Goodwin has been the closest thing they've had, but he's been in and out of the lineup and ineffective at times and whatever. If Derek Young can come in and make an impact and get a few receptions and be that third receiver that this team desperately needs, that can really change the complexity of Seattle's offense because it's a lot harder to cover when you've got that extra guy.
Yeah, and even like a kid like Godwin Abuaki could come in and receive the ball out of the backfield and give them a little spark. DJ Dallas is a fine player, but he's just not that dynamic with the ball in his hands. He's been playing well in open space because he's had huge running lanes to go through these last few weeks, but they need some home run weapons. And I'd like to see that in this game. My prediction is similar to yours, unfortunately. I just think it's just too much. It's too much right now. The 49ers are seasoned. They've got a lot of playoff experience on their roster. They're ready to go. They do have inexperience at quarterback, but I think it's just too much nonetheless. And Seattle gets great experience in this game, plays it close. I agree. A little tighter than you. I think it's going to be like 20-13 49ers. That's it.
Yeah. Cool.
So I hope we're wrong.
I hope we're wrong.
Because then we can come back and talk more Seahawks football. We're going to be doing that anyway.
Yep. Because we don't take a break even during the off season. Everybody,
three shows a week coming in.
There all week.
We're going to have all the draft coverage. So stick with us all year in the off season. It's never really an off season for us. In fact, it's one of our favorite times of the year, discussing all the ins and outs of free agency and managing the cap and building the roster and figuring it all out. That's part of the fun too. So, okay. Getting ahead of ourselves. Let's get this game. I mean, let's go have fun. Let's have fun. We're playing with house money. We weren't supposed to be here. We are here. Let's take advantage and make something happen and enjoy the game, everyone, no matter what happens. And hopefully we don't do what TCU did against Georgia, which is just not show up. we need to just show up and I'll be happy. I think a good showing, a hold your head high, walking out of the stadium feeling would be good. I want the win, but I also want them to just look good. And it's another data point in the off season when we're evaluating players and the team. So anyway, find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk. Find the show, search Seahawks Playbook Podcast on your favorite podcast platforms and YouTube, and hit that subscribe button. So until next time, take care, guys. Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.